When I told my wife to get ready, she lit up with excitement and started preparing herself for me. I told her I was going out to buy her a special gift and walked out of the room. In my heart, I laughed at her innocence. She believed me so easily. But the gift I had in mind was something that would destroy her life forever. As I stepped outside the house, a man was already waiting for me. I smiled at him and said, "She's inside. I'll turn off the lights so she won't know if it's me or you. Just make sure to handle her quickly before she makes too much noise." The man let out a sinister laugh and replied, "Don't worry, I know exactly how to do this." He was impatient to get inside. As soon as he entered, I switched off all the lights. This was the first time I had ever sold my wife, and surprisingly, I felt no remorse. After all, I had married her for this very purpose. My real wife was back in Pakistan, and this marriage was just a means to make money. I had no other way to earn in this foreign land, and this business was booming. Minutes passed, and soon I could hear my wife's muffled screams. She must have realized that the man in the dark wasn't her husband, but her cries meant nothing to me. All I cared about was waiting for the morning sun. Hours passed, and finally the man stepped out. His appearance was disheveled, his hair messy, shirt buttons torn. He placed a wad of cash in my hand and said, "Your wife is amazing. If I could, I'd come here every day, but you're charging too much." I smirked and replied, "If you have other clients, send them over tomorrow." He laughed loudly, nodding. "I have plenty of friends. I'll send someone." Then he left. Once he was gone, I made myself look roughed up, wrapping a bandage around my head as if I had been attacked. Stumbling inside the house, I hid the money. What I saw inside sent a shiver down my spine. My wife lay motionless on the bed, blood staining the sheets around her. Her feet were tied with rope, and it looked like she was barely conscious. I rushed to untie her feet, calling her name softly. "Rama, are you okay? What happened?" She opened her tear-filled eyes and, seeing me, broke into sobs. I lied to her, saying, "Someone attacked me outside. I was unconscious." "What happened to you?" With fear and confusion in her eyes, she told me how a stranger had entered the house in the dark and violated her. Crying, she threw herself into my arms, and I held her tightly. I had played this game so cleverly that she never suspected me. That's exactly what I wanted, to sell her every night without her ever realizing the truth. And of course, I had no intention of sharing the money with her. I comforted Rama, shedding fake tears alongside her. After a long while, when she calmed down, she said, "We should report this to the police." I refused and told her, "We don't know who those people were or how powerful they might be. We can't do anything about it because we have to live here. We are weak and poor. We can't fight against the powerful." I scared her, and she fell silent. I kept some of the money I'd received and sent the rest to my family back home. Now I was eagerly waiting for the next night, hoping the man would send another client so I could sell my wife again. But he didn't send anyone. As I kept waiting, night fell, and my wife's deal couldn't happen. I was deeply disappointed. I had wasted an entire night. Anger boiled inside me, and I decided to visit him at his home to find out why. I didn't want to conduct this business openly. He was discreet and willing to bring me clients, so I preferred dealing with him directly. The next day, under the pretense of work, I went to his house. What I discovered left me stunned. He had passed away the night before. He was a strong and healthy man. How could this happen? When I asked his family, they said he had complained about struggling to breathe, and then suddenly he collapsed. There wasn't even enough time to take him to the hospital. They suspected it was a heart attack. Instead of feeling sad, I became angry. I needed to find a new way to get clients. Then I remembered him mentioning that all his friends were pleasure seekers. This was the perfect opportunity to tap into his circle and expand my business. During his funeral, I mingled with the guests and quickly identified 2 or 3 of his friends who seemed like potential customers. They asked me how I knew the deceased. Slowly, I told them, "I'm the husband of a very beautiful woman. Your friend used to visit her to enjoy some time." Hearing this, their faces lit up with interest. They took my address because they, too, were eager to use my wife. It didn't take much effort. My plan worked. One of them even finalized a deal for that very night. Now I just needed a way to leave the house without arousing suspicion, so the man could enter in my absence. When night fell, I told Rama, I have to go for some extra work tonight. My employer has asked for overtime. I couldn't refuse. It's a good opportunity to earn some money. Hearing this, Rama looked at me with fear and said, please don't leave me alone. The last time you weren't here, something terrible happened to me. I don't want to be alone again. I gently reassured her, I need to work. When we have kids, do you want us to push them into the same cycle of poverty? Hearing about our struggles, she reluctantly agreed and stayed quiet. Poverty had exhausted her spirit. I silently left the house and sent the man in after me. Since our house was made of weak materials with low walls and fragile door locks, he entered effortlessly. Soon I heard Rama's screams echoing from inside. I sat outside, undisturbed. I felt no pity for her anymore. In my eyes, she had no value. She was just a machine to make money. I wanted to sell her every night for as much money as possible and take advantage of her beauty for my own gain. Hours passed, and finally, when the man came out, he happily placed a wad of cash in my hand. Every man who spent time with my wife left satisfied. She was not only young, but also incredibly beautiful, possessing an irresistible charm that could captivate any man. I spent the rest of the night outside and entered the house in the morning, pretending as if I had returned from a long night of hard labor. Once again, Rama was lying on the bed, her condition worse than before. As soon as she saw me, she started crying and said, I told you not to leave me alone. I don't know who broke in after you left and did terrible things to me. I feel like we are being watched. Someone has turned into my enemy. Her words angered me, and I snapped, stop talking nonsense. What do we even have that would make anyone our enemy? You should be more careful and make sure to lock the doors properly. After consoling her for a while, I told her I needed to sleep because I had worked hard all night. She sat silently in a corner, shedding tears while I slept peacefully. When I woke up, I told her I had to leave for work again. Leaving the house, I had barely walked a short distance when I saw one of the previous client's friends approaching me. He came up to me and said, just a while ago, my other friend also passed away. He was perfectly fine when he came to your house last night. But something happened. Both of my friends who spent time with your wife are now dead. What exactly is going on? Hearing this, I was taken aback but quickly responded, what nonsense are you talking about? What could my wife possibly do to them? She's always left exhausted and helpless. Maybe your friends were into drugs, which led to their deaths. Don't blame my wife, I snapped at him and walked away angrily. But deep down, the thought lingered. How did both of them suddenly die after spending the night with Rama? For the next several days, no clients came for my wife. It seemed that the news of the sudden deaths had scared them off. Then one day, while working at my job site, a man approached me. He was one of the influential figures at the place where I worked. With a sly grin, he said, your wife is stunning. I know you trade her. I want her for one night. I was quick to agree because I knew he was a wealthy man, and I could demand a hefty price from him. When I named my price, he agreed without hesitation. That night, under the pretense of extra work, I left the house, sending him in my place. By morning, when I returned home, my wife was crying silently but didn't say a word. It seemed she had accepted her fate, and her silence gave me peace of mind. After a brief nap, I returned to work and was soon hit with shocking news. Our employer had died after noon. Hearing this, my world turned upside down. This couldn't be a coincidence. The third man who spent the night with my wife had also met an untimely death. What was it about my wife that was causing the sudden deaths of all these men? I started feeling scared of my own wife. A few days ago, I had been intimate with her, yet nothing happened to me. I couldn't figure out if this was just a coincidence or if there was something sinister behind it. To uncover the truth, I decided that from now on, whenever I left a client with my wife, I would secretly watch them all night. 3 days later, I found another customer for my wife. When I sent him inside, I quietly sneaked into the house and peeked through a small window. The man was struggling to overpower my wife, and she was fiercely trying to break free from his grip. Minutes passed, and eventually he overpowered her. What I saw next left me utterly shocked. My wife did something that... My name is Hamad, and I am from Gujranwala, Pakistan. I arrived in Lebanon illegally, And upon reaching here, I realized I had made a terrible mistake. This place was even poorer than Pakistan. The rich were extraordinarily wealthy, and the poor were devastatingly destitute. There was no middle class. Since I had entered Lebanon illegally, I had no legal job opportunities. I couldn't understand why I had spent 2 lakh rupees to come here in the first place. I was furious with my friend Majid, who convinced me to take this step and introduced me to an agent. That agent took my money and sent me here, promising that Lebanon had plenty of job opportunities, even for undocumented workers like me. Desperate and hopeless, I sold my wife's jewelry, handed over the money, and took the plunge. But once I arrived, I realized I had been scammed. The agent had lied. There were no jobs, no opportunities, and I couldn't even survive here for a few days. Hiding from authorities, I wandered into a small, impoverished area where starvation was rampant. I felt that I wouldn't be caught easily in such a place, so I decided to stay there for a few days. While roaming around, I saw a woman sitting in distress. My Arabic was fluent, which was one of the reasons I had come to Lebanon. I approached her, thinking that perhaps talking to her might help me find a solution to my own problems. As soon as I sat beside her, she shrank in fear. I smiled and spoke to her in Arabic, asking about her situation. Instead of responding, she turned her face away and anxiously looked around as if searching for someone. I assured her, I am not a bad person. I am just troubled by my circumstances and need help from someone local. Seeing the innocence on my face, her eyes welled up with tears. She finally spoke, telling me that her family had fled from Syria due to the war, only to find similar hardships in Lebanon. Her parents had passed away within a few months of their arrival, leaving her all alone. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she said, I am terrified. I have heard that girls who migrate here alone are often forced into prostitution. Her words struck me hard. I had already heard about the booming flesh trade in Lebanon, especially due to rising poverty. But at that moment, what she told me made me even more cautious. It was the story of a girl who was completely alone, battered by circumstances, and I could take advantage of it. Even after seeing her tears, I felt no sympathy for her. My own life was in shambles, and I was worried about my wife and children's future. I had to do something, anything. That's when an idea struck me, and I started putting it into action. The girl told me her name was Rama. I decided to tell her everything about myself honestly. Hearing my story, she was shocked and said, Are you crazy? You came to this country looking for a job? The situation here is worse than you think. People are struggling with unemployment. How will you find work? I told Rama, if you and I join forces, we can figure something out. I don't know much about this place, and you're worried because you're a woman. If you help me find a job, I'll work, and together we can change our lives. She was surprised and said, You're a complete stranger to me. How can I trust you? I replied, Take your time to think, but remember, you have nothing to lose and neither do I. So don't take too long. She told me she worked as a waitress at a small hotel but faced constant harassment there, which left her feeling scared all the time. I took advantage of her fear, offering her a sense of security. For the next few days, I met her regularly. Eventually, she agreed to marry me. We had a quiet wedding, and I moved into her house. I made her quit her job as a waitress, pretending that I would take care of her by working labor jobs. But my real plan was far more sinister. I wanted to force her into prostitution. One day, I finally found a customer willing to pay a good price for her. And so, I sold my wife for a night. But the next morning, I was shocked to learn that the man had died. This strange pattern continued. Every man who spent a night with my wife ended up dead the next day. As my curiosity grew, I decided to uncover the truth. One night, after sending a client into the house, I silently sneaked in behind him and watched everything unfold from a hidden spot. The man was forcefully trying to overpower my wife, and she struggled against him. Eventually, he pinned her down and began to satisfy himself. But then, something happened that left me in shock. My wife quietly reached under the pillow and pulled out a syringe. Before the man could realize what was happening, she injected it into his leg with the precision of a trained nurse. The man spent the entire night with her, and, as usual, left in the morning, handing me the money. When I entered the house, I found Rama sitting in a corner crying. I sat beside her and said, I know the man who assaulted you last night will be dead in a few hours. She looked at me in shock and then smiled. With a cold expression, she said, people have always used me, thinking I am weak. When I married you, I thought you truly wanted to help me and be my support, but I realized soon enough that your intentions were no different. You wanted to use me for prostitution. That's why I didn't stop you, because I had already been violated twice before while working at the hotel. I had nothing to lose, Rama said, her eyes filled with a cold determination. But I wanted to teach these men a lesson. That's why whoever came to me, I quietly injected them with poison. It's a silent killer that slowly spreads through the body and eventually causes a heart attack. Anyone who does this to a girl like me deserves the same fate. Hearing Rama's words, I was left speechless. I had no idea that she had discovered my truth. I had tried my best to deceive her, to manipulate her into believing my lies. But she wasn't as naive as I had thought. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she continued. We Syrian refugees are already facing countless hardships, and on top of that, what happens to us here is inhumane. No one in the world is willing to raise their voice for us, and you stabbed me in the back under the sacred bond of marriage. I will never forgive you for this. With those words, she threw me out of her house and divorced me. Once again, I found myself on the streets, left with nothing. I had tried to take shortcuts to make money, and now I was paying the price for it. For the first time, I felt sympathy for Rama, but it was too late. I struggled for a few more days in Lebanon, barely surviving, and eventually returned to Pakistan. But when I arrived home, the news that awaited me struck me like a bolt of lightning. Someone had brutally assaulted my 8-year-old daughter, and now she lay bedridden, completely shattered. Perhaps the punishment for what I did to Rama had come upon my own daughter. Today, I deeply regret my actions, knowing that my sins might have led to my daughter's suffering. Do you think I am responsible for this tragedy?